Hey YouTube, Blackhead here, and got a new deck profile for you today. And today I'll be reviewing my new Divine Blue Eyes deck. Anyway, not to waste too much time, let's go and get started. Starting off with our monsters, we got our 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons. He's one of the main boss monsters and still one of the most powerful normal monsters to date. But yeah, gotta have 3 in this deck, of course. Next up we got our 3 Divine Dragonlord Felgrand. A really excellent card. If this card gets revived from the graveyard, you get to banish 1 monster on your opponent's side of the field, and if it's a level or a rank monster, he gains 100 attack points depending on what the rank or the level is. Also, when he destroys a monster by battle, you can revive any dragon from your from other players' graveyard as long as it's a level 7 or 8. So, really excellent card. Next up we got Arcbrave Dragon. Run this at 2 only though. Basically, if it's sent to the graveyard, on your opponent's standby phase, you can revive 1 level 7 or 8 dragon from your grave, which is a good target for Divine Dragonlord Felgrand or any other monster that you might have ready. Also, if this card gets revived, you can banish every face-up spell and trap on your opponent's side of the field, and it gains 200 attack and defense points for each card it banished. So, really good boss monster in this deck. Next up we got our 2 Dragon Spirit of Whites. This card counts as a Blue Eyes, so it's always treated as normal while it's in your hand or in the graveyard, so a good target for Dragon Shrine. Also, anytime it's summoned, you get to banish 1 spell and trap from your opponent's side of the field, and during either player's turn, as long as your opponent has 1 monster at least, you can tag out with this card and summon a Blue Eyes White Dragon from your hand. Alright, and next up we have one of our main boss monsters right here, Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon. All you need to do is just banish 1 dragon on your side, 1 face-up dragon you control. Also, once per turn, you can summon any dragon-type monster from your hand or graveyard, except this guy. So, a really excellent boss monster for this deck, and does tend to get pretty tricky to get around. But of course, due to the ban list, it's only limited to 1. All right, next up we got 3 Maiden with Eyes of Blue. One of my favorite, it's actually my most favorite card in the game. If this card is targeted for an attack, you can negate the attack and switch her to defense mode. Also, you can special summon a Blue Eyes White Dragon from your hand, deck, or graveyard. And if she's targeted by a card effect, meaning you can do this yourself as well, you can also special summon a Blue Eyes White Dragon from your hand, deck, or graveyard. But of course, her abilities are hard once per turn, so try not to mistake that. Next up, we got 3 Sage with Eyes of Blue. You can discard this card and target 1 face-up effect monster you control and send it to the graveyard, and then special summon a Blue Eyes from your deck. So it's a good way you can combo off your main target you really want to go for is Maiden. So you can get 2 free Blue Eyes White Dragons. Also, if this card is normal summoned, you get to add a level 1 Light Tuner to your hand, from your deck to your hand. But be careful of Ash Blossom and Drone Lockbirds with this combo though. Alright, next up we got 2 Whitestone of Ancients. This card gets sent to the graveyard. At the end phase, you can special summon a Blue Eyes from your deck. Also, you can banish this card and add 1 Blue Eyes from your graveyard back to your hand. I only run it at 2 because, you know, this deck's not pure Blue Eyes like my previous deck was. So, that's why I have to run this at 2. Next up, we just got the 1 Stone of Legend. It's a good target for banishment as well in case if you already got out all your Blue Eyes cards, but generally it's also a good searcher once it's sent to the graveyard. And lastly, we have Paladin of Felgrand, I'm sorry. And this guy's actually pretty cool. When this card is normal or special, you can equip 1 level 7 or 8 dragon from your hand or deck, and while it's equipped, it is unaffected by unaffected by monster effects, I'm sorry. And also, you contribute this 1 monster and this card, then target 1 level 7, 8, or 8 dragon from your graveyard and special summon it. Now, the reason I played this is because the one you want to equip with is actually going to have to be Arcbrave. Because if this card gets hit or Arcbrave, then generally you can use Arcbrave Dragons at the start of your next turn, really. So it's actually a really good combo. So whenever you summon Paladin of Felgrand, always go for Arcbrave. Don't go for anything else. But only do that, but make sure you bring it out as long as you have a dragon already ready in your graveyard. Alright, next up for our spells, we got 3 trade-in. Gotta have 3 since there's plenty of level 8s to pitch just to draw 2 free cards. We got the 1 card of consonants, same thing, there's plenty of stones, so just pitch one of the stones and draw 2 cards. Then we got our 2 Melody of the Awakening Dragon, only run 2 because, again, the only targets are just Blue Eyes White Dragons in this deck, so that's why I only run this thing at 2. But yeah, it's a good way to search off. Now for our field spells, and I got 2 different ones, but first we got Mausoleum of White. This card is really good because you get to have an additional normal summon as long as your second normal summon is a level 1 Light Tuner. Also, once per turn you can send 1 normal monster from your deck to the graveyard, target 1 monster you control, and it gains attack points equal to by 100 of that monster's level of the one that you sent, by the way. So it's also a good way to target your maiden, and lastly, and also to get more dragons to the graveyard. Also, you can banish this card to add a Burst Stream of Destruction to your hand, but I don't actually do that with this deck, so it's just there for the extra normal summon. Next up, we got the 1 Dragon Ravine. I would run more, of course, but fortunately this is the only copy I've managed to find. But once per turn you can discard 1 card, then activate one of these effects. The one you mainly just focus on in this deck is to send 1 dragon from your deck to the graveyard. Alright, next up we got our Dragon Shrine. Only run this at 2. It does get a little situational at times, but generally you send 1 dragon to the graveyard, and if it's a normal you get to send 1 additional one to the grave. So it's a good way to send like Blue Eyes White Dragon or Dragon Spirit of White, because again, since it's traded as a normal in the graveyard, you can send Arcbrave or Felgrand to the graveyard. But I mostly go for Arcbrave just so I can get that additional summon. Next we got 2 different fusion cards, Dragon's Mirror and Polymerization. Dragon's Mirror basically banish any number of dragons from your graveyard as long as it's the correct fusion materials for a dragon type fusion monster. And Polymerization, we already know what that does. Alright, and we got 3 revival cards. We got Silver's Cry. You target 1 normal monster from your graveyard and special summon it. Return of the Dragon Lords. Special summon 1 level 7 or 8 dragon. And you can banish this card whenever your dragons are about to be destroyed by battle or card effects. And then, now that, again, thanks to the new ban list, Monster Reborn is in the deck. Yay! Alright, and then next up we got our Ruins of the Divine Dragon Lords. I only run it at 1 just because like it gets situational as well, but it's also recyclable. Generally, as long as you control a level 7 or 8 dragon monster, any monster your opponent special summons except from the graveyard has its effects negated until the end of the turn, even when this card leaves the field. Once per turn you can send 1 other face-up monster you control, special summon 1 Dragon Lord token, and it'll have 0 attack and defense. And if this card's in your graveyard, you can send 1 level 7 or 8 dragon from your hand or face up from the field to the grave to add this card back to your hand. So it's a really good card. And our last spell is Forbidden Dress, and it's mainly a target for Maiden, but you can use it on anything else. Target 1 face-up monster you control, or 1 face-up monster on the field in general. Until the end of this turn, it loses 600 attack points, but it cannot be targeted or destroyed by other card effects. Next up we only run 2 traps. Champion's Vigilance, which is the solemn warning of this deck. As long as you control a level 7 or higher normal monster, you can negate any summon, a spell, or a trap card as well, and destroy it. And lastly, Oasis of Dragon Souls. Excellent card. It's Call of the Haunted, basically. You target 1 monster in your graveyard, special summon it in defense mode, and it becomes a worm type. When this card leaves the field, destroy that monster, and of course, when that monster leaves the field, destroy this card. So at least you don't have to worry about wasted space. Alright, next up is our extra deck. We got 2 dragons, or Blue Eye Spirit Dragons. I almost called it the wrong name. Once per turn, you can negate 1 effect that your opponent activates from the graveyard. Your opponent cannot special summon no more than 2 monsters at the same time, so generally your opponent can't pendulum summon that many monsters, as long as this guy remains on the field. And during either player's turn, you can tag out and special summon 1 light dragon type synchro monster in defense position, but gets destroyed at the end of the turn, which is why we have this card. Azure Eyes Silver Dragon. He's the only one that can negate that effect because as long as he's summoned, all dragons you currently control cannot be targeted or destroyed by card effects. And also, once each on your standby phase, you can special summon one normal monster from your graveyard. So it's a good way to recycle Blue Eyes White Dragon and Dragon Spirit of White. However, just note that his effect only lasts for 2 turns. So once he's summoned, until the end of the next turn, his effect will completely expire. Next up, we got the one Black Rose Moonlight Dragon, since it is summonable through Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon. Generally, when it's special summoned, you can bounce back one monster that was special summoned, or rather, if this card is special summoned, or if a level 5 or higher monster is special summoned to your opponent's side of the field, target one special summoned monster your opponent controls and return it back to the hand. We got Crystal Winged Synchro Dragon, which I generally use with Black Rose Moonlight Dragon and one of my tuners, so that way I can get him out. But it's kind of rare that I bring him out, actually, because I don't rely on him as much. Next up, we got our fusion monsters. We got one Neo Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. This card can make an additional time each time you send a Blue Eyes fusion monster to the grave. And also, let's see. Okay, so it says here, during either player's turn, when a card or effect is activated that targets a Blue Eyes monster you control, you can banish this card from your graveyard, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. It's a pretty interesting effect. I mean, I actually tend to overlook this one, but then again, I've seen a lot of people do the same thing, so no shame. Then we got our normal Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. You know, it's a classic, why not? Then we got one of my favorites, the Blue Eyes Twin Burst Dragon. Does not require polymerization, just needs to be a contact fuse with using 2 Blue Eyes White Dragons. This card cannot be destroyed by battle, and also can make 2 attacks on monsters, and if it fails to destroy a monster in battle, you get to banish that card, and this does not target or destroy. Next up, we got 5-Headed Dragon. This requires 5 different dragon-type monsters, which is good to bring out with Dragon's Mirror. Cannot be destroyed in battle except by a light attribute monster, and also battle damage. However, battle damage still gets inflicted, though. Let's see here. But this card does not take any battle damage, however, so, like, if someone happens to summon a monster stronger than this, I take no damage. Alright, next up we got First of the Dragons. Just requires 2 normal monsters to summon, and also it is unaffected by monster effects and cannot be destroyed in battle except by a normal monster. So, really interesting and really powerful wall, actually. And then we only run 3 Xyz monsters. We got Galaxy Eyes Cypher Dragon. Just requires 2 level 8s, but I don't usually use its effect because, you know, new format and all that. But generally, back then, you could just take control of one of your opponent's monsters. It becomes a Galaxy Eyes Cypher Dragon, and use that to overlay for a much more powerful one. But anyway, continuing on, we got number 92, which I overlay on top of Galaxy Eyes Cypher Dragon, which is Dark Matter Dragon. When this card is summoned, you send 3 dragons of different names to the graveyard, and your opponent has to banish 3 monsters of different names from his deck. So, really good to send like the most important dragons, which would be White Sun of Ancients, Archbrave, and Felgren Dragon. It's a really powerful card, and also you can detach 1 Xyz material, and this card can make 2 attacks on your opponent's monsters once each battle phase. Alright, next up we got our last card for the extra deck. Divine Dragon Knight Felgrand. Requires 2 level 8s. You can detach 1 material, then target 1 face-up monster on the field this turn. Its effects are negated, but is unaffected by other card effects. Now you can also target your own monster, which is really good because, like, you can use that towards your own Blue Eyes White Dragon, mainly because it doesn't have an effect. But yeah, this card is really powerful. You mainly want to protect your own monsters, but if there's a monster that's problematic on your opponent's side of the field, just make sure it's targetable. Don't waste its effect on that. Use it on your own monsters mainly. And of course, we got the one Dragon Lord token. Alright. I guess I'll go through the extra deck real quick. Or the side deck, I'm sorry. We got one Dragon Knight of Creation. When this card gains 4 levels during your opponent's turn only. When this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can send 1 level 7 or 8 dragon from your deck to the graveyard. And you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, target one level 7 or 8 dragon in your graveyard, and special summon it. So it's a really good card. We got the 1 Chaos Max. Cannot be targeted or destroyed by card effects, and it does double piercing damage. Kaiba Man. You contribute this card and special summon a Blue Eyes White Dragon. Priestess with Eyes of Blue, which is a Melody of the Awakening Dragon. When she's targeted by a card effect, you can add 2 Blue Eyes monsters of different names from your deck to your hand. And also, if one of those Blue Eyes monsters gets targeted for a card effect, you can shuffle this. You can shuffle it back to the deck and special summon this card in its place. Then we got Master with Eyes of Blue, who pretty much does the exact opposite of Sage. When normal summon, you can add 1 level 1 tuner from your grave back to your hand, and if this card is in your graveyard, you can shuffle it back, send 1 effect monster or target and send 1 effect monster you control, and special summon a Blue Eyes from your graveyard. Then we got Deep Eyes White Dragon. If a Blue Eyes monster you control gets destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon this card, and also inflict 600 points of damage for each dragon of different name in your graveyard to your opponent. And you can target 1 dragon type monster in your graveyard, and this card's attack becomes that monster's attack points. And if this card is destroyed by card effect, all monsters on your opponent's side of the field get destroyed. Then we side our 3 Blue Eyes alternative White Dragons. The reason I don't main it anymore is because it does tend to get bricky now, thanks to the new format. And also the fact that its ability to destroy 1 monster on the field targets, that's actually kind of the problem. I don't want to target, I just want to get things done, you know? Next up we got Amorphage Goliath. As long as this card is on the field, neither player can summon monsters from the extra deck except Amorphage monsters. So it's a really good way to deal with like pesky, like Spiral Double Helix, ABC Dragon Buster. So like this guy's a really good lockdown. We got Blue Eyes Shining Dragon. I figured why not. This guy can't be targeted by monster, spell, or traps, so it's a really good monster, and plus he gains 300 attack points for every dragon in your graveyard. And then we run 5 spells, so we got Forbidden Scriptures. If a monster battles an opponent's monster, during damage calculation, negate all other card effects on the field until the end of the damage step. Also, damage calculation for this battle uses each monster's original attack and defense points, so that means power-up attacks don't work. We got Ultra Poly. Pay 2,000 to fuse a monster using 2 materials you control as fusion materials. Neither player can activate cards or effects in response. So this card really does a lot for this deck, especially when you side it. And also you can banish this card and bring out the materials you use to fuse. So it's a good way to do some extra plays. Until I find a way to get this card to actually work. Because the problem is like this card only works while the monsters are on the field, and generally I usually fuse from my hand or directly from the graveyard. So, but generally, yeah, if you have link plays, this is a good card to play. Next up, we got Winged Beater Giant Dragon. Just call back 1 level 5 or higher dragon monster. Destroy all spells and traps on the field. We got our Chaos form, of course, for the Chaos Max Dragon. You can use this for a Blue Eyes White Dragon on your hand, field, or just banish 1 from the grave and summon the Chaos Max. And lastly, 1 additional copy of Silver's Cry. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you on the next one.